the subtle invitation of meaning. Sometimes life doesn't arrive with trumpets. It leans in like a whisper slipping through the seams of an ordinary day. You're on a bus, you open a book at random, and a sentence answers the question you've been dodging. A song starts the moment a certain name returns to mind. Coincidence? Perhaps. Yet when we breathe a little slower, time shows a finer weave, an understated thread between events that common reason can't neatly explain and that somehow still nudge us with care. This video invites you to listen for that thread without superstition or haste, joining philosophy, metaphysics, and the careful language of quantum physics to turn perception into practice. Before we continue, an invitation in this first minute. If this theme resonates, please like the video and subscribe. It's not only about an algorithm, it's intention made into gesture. In a metaphysical metaphor, your presence helps crystallize possibility toward meaning and expands the field for others to find this work. Your click acts like resonance, a vibration of attention that can reach someone who needs this message today. By subscribing, you join a quiet circuit of good that grows from the inside out, keeping the conversation alive and allowing this work to keep overflowing into other lives. We call it synchronicity, the meeting of outer happenings and inner states that recognize each other without a direct causal link. It can feel as if the world responds to the tone of our gaze. We're not offering easy fixes or blurring science with belief. We're saying that attention and intention reorganize how we perceive patterns. When the quality of focus shifts, the landscape seems to rearrange. What once felt like static begins to sound like music, and a line of meaning stitches together what seemed like fragments. Rather than hunting for miracles, we learn to read reality with such delicacy that reality itself appears to acknowledge the reading. Consider this moment a threshold. On one side, the rush that turns everything into noise. On the other, a quiet space where meaning can emerge. Between the two lies the choice to slow down. Inhale. Feel the weight of your body on the chair. Listen to your mind as if you were hearing a subterranean river. This simple gesture underpins any serious metaphysical inquiry. Without stillness, we trade depth for special effects. With stillness, the ordinary begins to glow, and tiny signals reveal a discrete architecture of coherence. As the noise recedes, the essential steps forward, and the accidental fades. Throughout this series, we'll integrate metaphoric clarity from metaphysics with honest concepts from quantum physics, never forcing bridges where they don't belong. We'll use quantum ideas as a language of limits and possibilities, not a mystical shortcut. We'll speak of the observer as a conscious stance toward experience, and of vibration as a poetic name for inner states that tune attention, choice, and meaning. The aim isn't to prove a dogma, but to offer lenses that let you read your own life with tenderness and precision, walking between symbols and facts, so that the beauty of the symbol never erases the integrity of the fact. Now, practice. Over the next 24 hours, carry a small notebook or open a note on your phone. Jot down any coincidence that feels meaningful, however small. Record the time, the context, what your body felt, and the decision you made next. Don't chase grand signs. Look for intimate coherence. If this video touched you, write the first intention you want to honor this week. When we name things with calm, the world often answers with organic kindness. In the next block, we'll give this phenomenon sharper names and map how to recognize synchronicities without slipping into superstition. What synchronicity is and why it isn't. Just luck. Synchronicity names the meeting point between an inner state and an outer event that touch by meaning, not by cause. You think of someone you haven't seen in years, and that same day, they call. You've been gathering courage to change jobs, and a timely posting appears just as the decision ripens inside. For Carl Jung, this wasn't prophecy or magic, but a causal connecting principle, a bridge where meaning links psyche and world. Coincidence is merely temporal. Synchronicity is significant, and that is why it can shift the direction of a life. Saying it's just luck shrinks the more interesting question. Why do certain happenings seem to synchronize with crucial inner needs? Statistics measures frequency. Synchronicity measures psychological pertinence. It does not always bring pleasant answers. At times, it is an uncomfortable mirror reflecting what we avoid. Jung arrived at the idea by clinically observing recurring patterns that lined up dreams, symbols, and everyday facts, an invitation to integrate what had been forgotten. It is no guarantee of destiny. It is a call to consciousness, a subtle dialogue between inside and outside asking to be recognized. Isn't that confirmation bias? In part, yes. Our minds notice what confirms expectation. That is why disciplined observation matters. A practical safeguard. Name your intention in writing before the event. When something aligns, record concrete details, bodily sensations, and what behavior changed. If everything is read after the fact, apophenia grows. If there is prior intention and subsequent effect, sobriety grows. The reticular activating system, the RAS, filters what we perceive. Authentic synchronicity goes beyond a filter because it alters decision and direction, not only attention. And what about quantum physics? Let's keep our honesty intact. The observer effect concerns measurements in the micro realm. It is not your thoughts manufacturing objects in the street. Used responsibly as metaphor, it reminds us that how we look constrains what we can notice and choose. Speaking of a field of possibilities, here means this. Among the many paths available in your present scene of life, the quality of attention and inner state opens or closes perceptual and practical doors. We don't invoke particles to explain meetings. We use quantum language to honor limits and prudence. To distinguish wish from signal, try a simple journal frame. Begin with context, where you were, when, and which question was alive. Then the call, the specific event and why it touched you. Then the body, the dominant sensation, expansion, contraction, clarity, or confusion. And finally the course, the concrete micro-action it inspired. Give the entry a coherent score from 1 to 5, and watch what unfolds for 72 hours. Genuine synchronicity tends to yield practical coherence, an important conversation, an applicable insight, a step that aligns values with action. The rest is beautiful noise. Thank it, then let it pass. Remember, synchronicities do not replace responsibility. They are arrows, not the legs that walk. Treated with reverence and critical sense, they strengthen autonomy rather than dependence. Your exercise for today. Choose a living question, name it precisely. Write your intention and stay attentive to the ordinary. Street signs, names, fragments of conversation, unexpected invitations. Record only what moves a real decision. In the next block, we'll dive into attention as a structuring force, how the mind selects patterns, how the RAS comes into play, and how to train perception to find meaning without losing solid ground. Attention shapes. Perception, RAS, intention, and selective readiness. Attention is like a lantern cutting through the night. Wherever it falls, the world gains contour. Wherever it doesn't, things stay diffuse. When you ask for a way forward, your surroundings begin to reveal arrows that were there all along, not because they appeared from nowhere, but because the question tuned your listening. Perception is active. It organizes chaos into figure and ground, lifting what can dialogue with your intention. That's why when you long for courage, courageous gestures stand out. When you seek calm, the city offers quiet harbors between horns and haste. Neurobiology names a key mechanism behind this: the reticular activating system, the RAS, which regulates wakefulness and filters stimuli, letting some signals reach awareness while many remain in the background. It isn't magic, it's a relevance filter. When you name an intention clearly, you don't create objects from nothing. You mark what already exists with the color of your search. Signs, names, phrases, invitations gain salience. Genuine synchronicity is more than selective attention. It's when this focused readiness coincides with an event you didn't control, yet that answers your inner state with striking precision. There is a fine difference between anxious seeking and open presence. In anxious seeking, the mind hunts for proof to confirm what it wants, forcing the map to fit the territory. In open presence, attention rests yet stays alert, allowing what is meaningful to present itself naturally. Bias drops. Discernment rises. A simple training. Before stepping into your day, inhale and picture your attention as a soft circle around your body. Say inwardly, "I perceive without hurry. I recognize what matters. I let noise pass." This quiet stance changes the flavor of the world that meets you. Field practice for today. Choose a 20-minute observation window and a small, specific, ethical intention. Say, find a respectful way to start that difficult conversation. Walk or do your tasks, noting 3 elements in the environment that speak to that intention. Record the time, what you saw or heard, your body's sensation, and the micro-action it inspires now. If nothing appears, honor the silence. The goal isn't to collect signs, it's to recognize living coherence. When something does arise, keep your feet on the ground. Test it lightly in practice and observe what unfolds over the next 24 to 72 hours. To calibrate your filter, use the signal sense step cycle. Signal: what emerged clearly without strain? Sense: how does it speak to your values and the real context? Step: what minimal, reversible, responsible action can you take now? If the body tightens and the mind clouds, wait. If there is calm expansion and simple clarity, move 1 inch forward. In a few weeks, your journal reveals steady patterns, no slogans, helping you tell projected wish from responses that truly widen your freedom. Attention shapes perception, and perception shapes decision. Here, the observer metaphor becomes useful, not as someone conjuring particles with thought, but as a posture that reconfigures practical possibilities by choosing where and how to look. In the next block, we'll cross the bridge to quantum with rigor, what the observer's role actually teaches, why information matters, and where the analogy must stop. So poetic language doesn't masquerade as scientific claim. We'll proceed with beauty and precision, the two wings of the same bird. Bridges to quantum, observer, information, and the limits of analogy. When we speak of bridges between quantum theory and everyday life, we must walk with precision and beauty at once. Quantum physics describes the micro, few particle systems, subtle phenomena, measurements that demand rigorous apparatus. It is not a shortcut to claim thought creates objects. The responsible bridge is metaphorical. We use quantum language to reflect on attention, choice, and possibility, without confusing the laboratory with the living room. In this way, we honor both science and intimate experience, letting each illuminate the other without distortion. But the so-called observer effect does not mean the human mind materializes realities. It means the way we measure a system influences what we can know about it. Practically speaking, the experimental setup frames the question the world is able to answer. This inspires us beyond the lab. The questions we choose and how we pose them shape the paths we can see. Ask, why does everything go wrong? And you'll gather evidence of failure. Ask, what is the next honest step? And workable responses appear. We don't alter nature's laws, we alter the field of perceived possibilities. Information offers another fertile point. In physics, information is tied to physical states, storage limits, and the cost of erasing or measuring. As metaphor, it reminds us that scattered attention becomes noise, while precise attention becomes signal. When you define a simple, coherent intention, you lower entropy in your mental map. Fewer diffuse paths, more viable directions. Life does not become predictable. It becomes legible. And legibility is not magic. It is the calm work of separating what matters from what distracts, giving reality a contour the body recognizes as practicable truth. Speak of entanglement with care. In the micro realm, particles can display correlations not explained by ordinary local signals. This does not authorize everyday telepathy or causal jumps at the human scale. As an existential image, however, entanglement recalls interdependence. Choices resonate through networks of relation. Small actions radiate effects that return by unexpected paths. Act with integrity at one node of the social fabric, and other threads may reorganize. Not because we outrun light, but because symbolic, emotional, and material ties carry subtle, cumulative consequences. Consider decoherence. In macroscopic settings, innumerable interactions make superpositions unravel quickly. The world appears classical, stable, and reliable enough to live in. As metaphor, multiple confused inner states collapse into habits when presence is neglected. To see new paths, establish conditions. A brief silence, name the question, ask it better, take a small action, observe. Try this today. Facing a decision, craft two versions of the question, one fatalistic, one creative, and notice how each frame opens or closes concrete alternatives. And keep our bridges sober with a short checklist. 1. Am I using quantum as metaphor or literal claim? 2. Is what I'm saying falsifiable or merely impressive? 3. Is there a responsible action implied by this reading? 4. Does experience show practical coherence in the coming days? If the answers are mature, proceed. If there is dazzled hype without ground, adjust course. In the next block, we'll deepen the idea of vibration, not as a mystical slogan, but as a poetic name for inner states that tune perception and choice, turning presence into path and decision into quiet music. The law of vibration. Inner state, resonance, and perceived patterns. When we speak of vibration here, we're not invoking secret numbers or hidden frequencies. We're giving a poetic name to the tonal quality of presence you carry into every scene of life. Some days we arrive contracted, like an out-of-tune instrument scraping its first chord. On others, our presence sounds clean and the pieces fit with less friction. This inner quality, shaped by breath, posture, language, and intention, molds what we perceive and how we respond. When the tuning is rough, the world reads as threat. When it's clear, we notice invitations. It isn't a miracle, it's trained sensitivity, like tuning a piano before the concert. The body is our first tuning fork. When the breath is shallow and rushed, the mind produces noise and urgency. When the breath drops and steadies, thought becomes legible. Notice how a tense conversation changes texture when someone inhales more deeply and lowers their shoulders. That isn't telepathy, it's environment. In our vocabulary, vibration means coherence between inside and outside. Thinking, feeling, and speaking begin to say the same thing. This doesn't guarantee perfect outcomes, but it raises the odds that we'll see useful patterns and move with less waste of psychic energy. Or to turn metaphor into practice, try a brief tuning protocol before decisions and meaningful encounters. First, adjust the breath. Inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 6 for about 3 minutes, no forcing. Second, realign the body. Feet grounded, jaw soft, chest open without stiffness. Third, gently name the dominant emotion, apprehension, clarity, sadness, and watch how naming thins the fog. Fourth, craft a path-opening question. What is the next honest, simple step? Finally, listen to the room for 1 minute, as if waiting for a chord to resolve. Often, the needed cue is already present. Resonance also appears among people. When you arrive with steady presence and speak with precision, the field around you tends to organize. Answers clarify, misunderstandings thin, timing improves. Not because you controlled anyone, but because your consistency reduced noise and offered a common rhythm. Think of a quartet. When one musician enters firmly, the others find the pulse. The ethical invitation is not to manipulate signals for advantage, but to offer a presence that favors understanding and lucid choice. Resonance is service. It turns climate into pathway without erasing anyone's autonomy. And to avoid confusing resonance with superstition, use sober heuristics. Faced with a sign, ask, does this align with my values and the actual facts? Does it produce calm clarity in the body or just euphoria? Does it yield a responsible, reversible step within hours? If not, thank the symbol and move on. In your journal, use a simple frame. Perceived signal /context/bodily sensation minimal inspired action/observable evidence in 72 hours. Soon you'll distinguish fertile patterns from fascinating noise. Good vibration is not a talisman. It's a habit of coherence that makes life more legible. An exercise for the next 72 hours. Begin the day with 7 minutes of tuning, 4 to 6 breathing, posture alignment, emotion naming, honest question. Midday, make a 2-minute check-in and adjust the tone if needed. At night, review your journal and mark where practical coherence showed up. Conversations that flowed, decisions that saved energy, opportunities that emerged without strain. Scan 3 domains: work, relationships, self-care, and look for discrete patterns. In the next block, we'll formalize this process into a Synchronicity Journal. Categories, recurring signals, and a clear method for turning perception into direction. Synchronicity Journal. Method, categories, and recurring signals. A journal is the instrument that turns the subtle into the visible. Writing is not merely recording, it is measuring experience, as if you positioned a delicate apparatus so the intangible leaves traces. When you note context, sensation, and aftermath, something organizes itself. What looked like dust of chance becomes a readable constellation. The journal doesn't create synchronicities. It shapes their legibility. In the metaphysics of our journey, it is the bridge between inner vibration and observable facts. In the careful language of science, it is a protocol that reduces noise so days can be compared, patterns recognized, and decisions made with sobriety. But begin each entry with time and scene, date, hour, and where you were. Next, name the living question in one present tense line. I seek clarity about X. Describe the event that drew your attention with photographic simplicity, without interpreting yet what you saw, heard, or encountered. Then register the body, expansion or contraction, warmth or coolness, wide or shallow breath, and the dominant emotion. Finally, write the micro-decision this suggested for the next few hours. Let the text be humble and concrete. With time, that care reveals whether there is practical coherence or whether everything was just seductive, passing sparkle. As pages accumulate, you'll notice families of signals. Some repeat as insistent numbers on clocks, receipts, and doors. Others arrive as names returning by different routes. Still others as thematic symbols, birds, songs, phrases in shop windows, smart detours that redirect your path, or improbable encounters that advance a delayed conversation. Instead of treating this like a mystical catalog, mark them as attention categories: numerical repetition, name recurrence, thematic symbol, intelligent detour, key encounter. Categories do not cage reality. They cast light, so meaning can stand out without forcing the map over the territory. But to separate gold from glitter, adopt coherence criteria. At the end of each entry, give a 1 to 5 score for pertinence to the named question, bodily clarity, simplicity of the inspired gesture, and an observable result within 24 to 72 hours. Fertile synchronicity leaves a trail. A conversation opens, a clear yes arrives, a liberating no appears, a path that saves psychic energy. Beautiful noise swells euphoria, then evaporates without effect. Remember, it's not the size of the sign, but its capacity to generate lucid decision. In this way, the metaphor of vibration finds ground, and the day's poetry allies with method. Reserve a weekly review cycle. Reread entries tied to work, relationships, and self-care. And sketch a small personal atlas. Which symbols repeat? Which emotions ask for more care? Which decisions brought measurable lightness? Notice the silences too. Days without signals are as informative as abundant ones, like in quantum work, where absence can also speak to the conditions of the setup. Ask yourself, what has my attention been feeding? What question have I been asking the world? What minimal adjustment improves next week's experiment? This continuous refinement avoids delirium and sustains beauty with truth. A 7-day practice. Each morning, write one clear intention and a single focus. Midday, add a 3-line mini report on any meaningful coincidence, staying honest about the body's feel. At night, close with the signal sense step triad. What emerged, how it speaks to your values, and which minimal action fits now. At the end of day 7, choose one recurring pattern and test it with a small, reversible, responsible move. If coherence appears, strengthen it. If not, adjust your listening. In the next block, we'll integrate everything into the intention alignment action triad, so the journal stops being just record and becomes lived direction. The intention alignment action triad. From symbol to lived step. The intention alignment action triad is how we turn signals into a path. Intention is the question we offer the world. Alignment is the inner adjustment that harmonizes body, mind, and values with that question. Action is the minimal, ethical, concrete gesture that tests the coherence of what we've perceived. Practiced in a circle, each one feeding the other, they quiet noise, save psychic energy, and make life more legible. In a responsible quantum metaphor, it's like choosing the observation setup. The right question, in the right state, lets pertinent possibilities reveal themselves and become movement. Intention isn't a tense wish demanding the universe to comply. It's a lucid agreement with what truly matters now. It's framed with precision and humility, short, specific, felt in the body. Instead of, I want success, try, I want clarity to begin that conversation with respect. A mature intention doesn't require extraordinary signs. It tunes the lantern of attention to notice the next possible step. In scientific imagery, defining intention resembles choosing which quantity to measure. By delimiting the question, you reduce dispersion, soften the urge to control, and create conditions for relevant patterns to stand out without forcing miracles. Alignment is where words and presence meet. A beautiful sentence in a notebook means little if the body is contracted, the breath shallow, and the language abrasive. To align is to restore coherence to the system. Soften the jaw, lengthen the exhale, name the dominant emotion, and check whether the intention honors your values and real constraints. When this happens, mental entropy drops, sensitivity rises, and useful signals sharpen. This isn't about raising vibration as a slogan. It's about cultivating an inner tone that enables discernment. The world stops feeling like a hostile riddle and becomes a readable text, line by line. Action is the honest exam of a hypothesis inspired by the symbol. Rather than grand leaps, we prefer reversible micro-decisions that can be observed within 24 to 72 hours. Send the message, schedule the meeting, Study one chapter. Walk to the place that's calling. The right action asks for courage without violating your limits. It produces reality data for the journal and can be adjusted without drama. In the metaphor of decoherence, action collapses a cloud of ideas into a verifiable trace. The sign stops being a comforting thought and becomes ground. 1 inch forward, repeated with steadiness, changes trajectories. To live the triad in daily life, try a 3-minute ritual before relevant choices. First, quiet. 3 breaths with longer exhales, feeling your feet gain weight. Second, write the intention in 1 line, as if crafting a useful, beautiful question. Third, check alignment. Does the body open or close? Which word needs refining? Finally, choose the minimal action that honors all of this. Note it in the journal and proceed. If nothing arises, accept the pause as part of the method. The field organizes when we respect timing, and respect is a deep form of intelligence. But the triad isn't a special occasion event. It's a way of existing. With it, synchronicities stop being exotic collectibles and become navigation instruments. Sometimes the world answers with clear evidence. Other times, silence indicates the question needs a different contour. Epistemic humility is strength here. You learn from signs and also from their absence. In the next block, we'll step down into decision-making without superstition. Sober criteria, concrete examples, and a gentle way to say no to seductive noise, preserving energy for what truly asks for presence. Deciding without superstition, sober heuristics, and lucid reading. Making decisions in the light of synchronicity isn't handing the steering wheel to glamorize chance. It's learning to read what emerges with sobriety, naming limits and potentials. A signal is not a decree, it's a hypothesis of meaning. When an event touches your inner state, the mature question isn't, did the universe command this? But what does this invite me to practice now, without violating values or facts? Decision here is a craft of presence. We braid a clear intention, aligned body, and observable step, accepting that reality co-authors the path and won't always confirm our will. The first heuristic is values plus facts. Before acting, check whether the impulse honors your core values and dialogues with concrete data in the situation. Then apply the counterfactual. If I hadn't noticed this sign, would these actions still be sensible? If yes, the sign merely illuminated existing coherence. If no, projection may be at play. Finally, scan the body. Is the field calm expansion and clarity, or tense euphoria and urgency? Serene expansion tends to accompany ethical, workable choices. Anxious urgency often masks fear, dressed as intuition. In the second heuristic is reversibility plus scale. Favor minimal steps you can review within 24 to 72 hours. Instead of move cities tomorrow, run an experiment, walk the neighborhood, speak with locals, model costs. Good decisions produce reality data for the journal. The rest is seductive mist. When a signal appears, translate it into a low-risk micro-action. Send an honest message, schedule a conversation, test a prototype. If results widen clarity and reduce friction, strengthen the line. If they seed confusion and drain disproportionate energy, thank the metaphor and step back to recalibrate. The third heuristic is time plus silence. What remains true after the first glow is more trustworthy than what only dazzles in the heat of the moment. Give overnight space to choices that bend trajectories. Notice whether, the next day, the idea returns with simplicity, or only with fear of missing out. Remember, in mature practice, not acting is also a decision. Silence may mean the question isn't framed well yet, or that your body needs better alignment for the reading to be clear. Haste is noise. Presence is a fine filter. The fourth heuristic is intersubjectivity. Share your reading with a lucid ally who knows your biases, not to outsource the choice, but to ventilate perception. If the interpretation wilts when spoken aloud, it may have been rootless enthusiasm. If it gains contour and remains ethical, advance an inch. Add proof of work. What concrete consequence will this decision produce today? Choices that live only in symbols tend to evaporate. Those that touch time, care, resources, and dialogue reveal substance. Symbol without ground enchants. Symbol with ground transforms. Today's exercise. Choose a live decision and run it through the signal sense step cycle under these 4 heuristics, writing everything in your journal. Then set a 48-hour window for a minimal, reversible, ethical action to test your reading. At the end of the window, record effects and adjust course. If nothing moves, accept the interval as part of the method and refine the question. In the next block, I'll offer a 7-day roadmap, a simple, deep protocol to train attention, refine vibration, log synchronicities, and convert symbols into steps that honor real life. 7-day roadmap. Guided practice of observation and micro-decisions. This 7-day protocol isn't a performance challenge. It's an intimate laboratory for turning synchronicity into lived direction. It braids a clear intention, tuned inner state, and minimal decisions that are observable on short timelines. Across the week, you'll alternate open attention with practical focus, logging everything to reduce noise and heighten legibility. The idea is simple and deep. When small gestures are repeated with care, the world becomes more readable. The body gains confidence, and symbols stop being ornaments. They become footbridges between what you feel and what you choose. Day 1, prepare the field. In the morning, spend 7 minutes tuning, 4 to 6 breathing, posture that opens without stiffness. Name the dominant emotion. Write a short intention for the week, clarity for X, courage for Y. Create your journal with columns, time and scene, living question, event, body, micro-decision, coherence 1 to 5. Midday, run a 20-minute observation window with open presence. Note 3 elements that catch your attention without interpreting. At night, apply signal sense step to one of them, seeking a minimal, reversible, ethical action for the next 24 hours. Day 2. Selective attention with sobriety. Choose one living question. Before you leave, frame it 2 ways. One fatalistic, one creative. Notice how each frame alters perceived options. During the day, keep a soft eye for quiet repetitions, names, images, phrases. When something pops, check values plus facts. Does this reading honor your values and converse with real data in context? If yes, translate it into a micro-action that yields reality data by evening. Record bodily feel, before and after the action. Note whether there's calm expansion or tense euphoria. That difference will be your first teacher. Day 3. Intention as observation setup. In the morning, refine the intention into one present, practicable line. Run an observation window in a busy place, street, subway, market, training the eye to sort beautiful noise from useful cue. When an event touches your inner state, describe it photographically first. Only then apply signal sense step. In the afternoon, have one small conversation you've been postponing, using precise language and long breathing. At night, evaluate practical coherence. Did the day grow more legible? Was psychic energy saved? Can the body sustain this choice tomorrow? Days 4 and 5. Intersubjectivity and Personal Atlas. Day 4. Share one signal reading with a lucid ally, not to outsource the choice, but to ventilate perception. If the idea wilts when spoken aloud, thank it and adjust. If it gains contour and stays ethical, advance an inch. Day 5. Classify entries into numerical repetition, name recurrence, thematic symbol, intelligent detour, key encounter. Score 1 to 5 for pertinence, bodily clarity, simplicity of gesture, and 24 to 72-hour outcome. Watch where stable coherence appears and where fascination lacks effect. This mapping begins your atlas of signals. Day 6. Fertile silence and retuning. Practice a brief, fast from signs, lower stimuli, silence notifications for an hour, and walk without hunting coincidences. Just listen. If nothing appears, nothing also informs. Like decoherence returning stability to the classical world. Retune intention with a more beautiful, useful question if needed. Choose one concrete gesture of care. Organize a space. Write an honest note. Tend the body. And observe how the inner weather shifts. Legitimate signals often approach when we aren't chasing. They recognize habitable spaces. Day 7. Review, commitment, continuity. Reread the week with tenderness and rigor. What repeated? Where did presence open doors? Where did haste close windows? Identify one recurring pattern and choose a 7-day experiment for next week. A daily micro-action that translates that pattern into practice. One email, 20 minutes of study, a short conversation. Write a one-sentence commitment and date it. If there is silence, honor it. If there is direction, walk 1 inch. In the next block, we'll stitch this journey closed. Epistemic humility, gratitude, and the serene commitment to keep tuning the field. Closing. Epistemic humility and the commitment to keep tuning the field. We arrived here by a discreet road, guided by small signs and large questions. Life rarely explains itself with thunder. It prefers the delicacy of hints. The way certain events brush against what we feel and suddenly light a direction. If something in you grew quieter, don't mistake quiet for passivity. It is strength without haste, attention without rigidity, a presence that breathes. Read soberly. Synchronicity doesn't promise magical shortcuts. It opens windows of meaning through which reality becomes more legible, allowing you to walk as co-author of the chapter you're living. More than ideas, what we proposed was practice. The intention alignment action triad returns coherence to everyday life. The signal sense step cycle turns symbol into a verifiable gesture. The journal measures experience the way one maps stars to one-day trace constellations. None of this replaces responsibility, study, dialogue, limits, or rest. All of it conserves psychic energy and restores dignity to choice. When you name with precision, tune the body with kindness, and test hypotheses through minimal steps, the landscape changes texture. What looked like fog arranges itself into walkable trails, and moving 1 inch becomes enough. We also learn that discernment is born where beauty meets truth. It is beautiful to imagine a responsive universe. It is true to admit that answers don't always arrive on our timeline. Epistemic humility reminds us that silence informs as much as signal, and that "I don't know yet" is a fertile threshold, not a failure. There will be days of beautiful noise. Honor them without clinging. There will be mistakes. Thank them without cynicism. Method protects the soul. Clear intention, aligned body, honest questions, reversible actions, reviews that are tender and rigorous. This is how poetry and ground hold hands without betraying each other. If the quantum metaphor served us, it was as a language of limits and possibilities. The observer as a posture of attention, information as the reduction of noise, entanglement as a reminder of interdependence, decoherence as a warning that unattended superpositions become habits. No absolute promises, only living responsibility. Ethics is our north. We use signs to serve what is real, not to manipulate people or excuse impulses. When your presence is steady, resonance reorganizes conversations. When your words are precise, misunderstandings dissolve. When your gesture is honest, the surrounding field finds a common pulse. If you wish to carry this forward, treat it as a gentle ritual renewed each morning. Wake and let the exhale be longer than the inhale. Write a short intention. Let the body find posture without hardness. At midday, make a small check-in. Remember what matters, and notice where life offered discrete cues. At night, review the journal with calm, marking what generated practical coherence and what was only sparkle. Not as pressure, but as care. Some cycles ask for advance, others for resting. Observed with respect, this cadence tends to bring the kind of courage that lasts. If you felt a peace shift inside, carry it into simple routines. Coffee prepared with presence, a message sent without noise, a conversation where you listen before replying. Rest that lets the body relearn its rhythm. It is in these ordinary places that synchronicity finds a home, and metaphysics stops being theory to become life. I leave you with gratitude and a commitment to keep tuning the field, one gesture at a time, so meaning appears where speed once lived, and so that your walk, even in silence, can light the way for others nearby. And so, see you in the next video, with more information on everything that involves growing, evolving, transforming, and manifesting. See you soon.